All right, guys, welcome back to another video. We are here at Barrett-Jackson to look at the brand new Shelby GT350. And I'm here with Tim, who's from Shelby America.
Good afternoon. What an exciting time for us to introduce the Gen 5 GT350. Car has an incredible historical history with the public, dating all the way back to 1965, when the car that was referred to, the Mustang, as a secretary's car, Carroll Shelby decided it was time to make it more masculine. So here we are 60 years later, celebrating the 60th anniversary of this iconic car. Let me take you for a walk around with the car.
Really quickly, I noticed that in some of the details for the car, that there's only going to be 562 of them, just like when they originally came out?
Correct.
That's pretty cool.
So that's a lot of history has gone on and thought process has gone into the reintroduction of this car. I mentioned to you earlier the 5th generation. This car started in 1965. Shelby built the car 65 through 67, and then Ford had licensing rights and built the 68 through 70s. We then bring the car back for Gen 3, which is 2011 through 14 cars. And then, as history has shown itself, it went back to Ford on the 15 through 20 cars. Now here we are, 5th generation, bringing it back home to Shelby American. Pretty awesome. So you know, with the Gen 4 car, which had the flat plane crank, one of the questions that we've constantly been asked at Shelby is, we loved the car, the one that had the Voodoo motor, but we wanted more power.
Right.
And the Voodoo motor car, which Ford built, was not built to accommodate a supercharger. So with the new car, which sports a 5-liter Coyote motor, we're now able to produce 810 horsepower.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Which is the most powerful GT350 ever built.
Now, I want to jump in there really quickly with the part of basically the supercharger. One of the controversial things that I've heard is that people are saying it's just a GT with a Whipple. So what would you say in terms of people having those comments towards this car? How would you kind of combat that in a way?
Well, I'd say there's a lot of content that has gone into this car.
Right.
Yes, it is a GT with a Whipple. Plus. When we bring the 350. We add handling, we add suspension. We add, of course, appearance, we add an aluminum hood.
Yeah.
You walk around the car, you know, we see here in the back of the car the custom wheels and tires. It has the big Brembo brakes. If you're going to go fast, you better be able to stop. Yeah. Good idea. You see the large Brembos, a car better be able to breathe.
Right.
So the back of the car, we see the Borla exhaust. Once again, another historical piece of Shelby working with Borla with the exhaust systems. With the back of the car, aerodynamics is important to us. We see the 350 with the duckbill spoiler on it. Once again, airflow, aerodynamics. It has the optional carbon fiber wing on it.
Okay. And we say option, so does that mean you can buy the 350 without the wing in total?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That's
and what would that set someone back? Like, what's the price for that?
Final pricing is being worked out.
Worked on? Okay.
Right now on options. The car, as we see it right now, is right around the $110,000 mark. Okay.
And do you know what because I know there's the 480 horsepower one without the supercharger, correct?
Correct.
And do we know the pricing on that one at all, or is it just, we only know the supercharger price one?
Right now, we're working out finalities as far as pricing as we are getting ready to go into production. So there will be a difference, and mainly that's just going to be for green state cars where there are issues with having superchargers on those cars.
Right.
You know, when we look at identity of the car, we've put a lot of thought processes in the design of the car. Everything from the custom front hood that we see. With venting, you better be able to have venting, get heat out of the engine compartment.
Yeah.
Then as we move around, you see traditional Shelby badging on the car. The front of the car, as we see it, is all Shelby with the custom Shelby grille in.
And would you expect anybody to buy the new 350 and put, say, RTR parts on it, or do you think they would just stick with the Shelby name?
You know, I think the power behind the Shelby name we like to keep it original.
Right.
I always tell my customers, don't do what you can't undo. So I think the brand has spoken for itself. The history is there with the Shelby name. So all of our cars have a custom upholstery. We are not replacing the seats. We want to make sure that the airbags and everything stay in place. And so as far as what we do is we reskin the existing seats which are in the car with custom Shelby upholstery.
Okay. And is there like a way you've purposely done the intricate style designing with anything, or?
Our senior designer, Vince Lavalette, has put a lot of thought into the design of this car. So as you look at the prints, Shelby, Snake, tradition once again is part of the car.
Yeah.
In a lot of our cars, harness bars are an option. It's undetermined at this point.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, this is a 3-liter Whipple.
Okay.
So we're not getting into the internals of the car, but with the supercharger, we're adding to the horsepower of the car. A 486 horsepower car is now going to 810 with the Whipple supercharger.
That's awesome. And then in terms of transmission, is that different all? Is it been tuned by Shelby?
The transmission remains the same.
Okay.
The customer for this 350, as compared to the Gen 4 car built by Ford, you have the option of the 10-speed automatic or the 6-speed manual.
What would you recommend if you were going to take one? Would you take the auto or the manual?
You know, I'm old school.
Oh, manual?
Yep, I still like doing donuts with a manual transmission.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't? So, since it's still with the 5th gen, would it have that implementation of the e-brake so you could do like drifting, or is it going to have a proper normal handbrake, or is it going to have that special?
This has the electronic handbrake in it right now, so can't really get into the particulars with that.
Right.
As far as the e-brake, I know what you're talking about, but
yeah,
a lot of safeguards have been put into this car by Ford.
Right.
And so as far as the e-brake and drifting, not able to speak to that right now.
Is there any upgraded cooling with the engine bay at all with the help with the more heat that's going into it now?
Well, these cars come to us as GT Premiums from Ford.
Okay.
So with the GT Premium car with the performance package, the Perf Pack, that car has upgraded cooling in it. So with the package, we have upgraded cooling as well as the upgraded big Brembos on it.
Okay. And then is the one that's up there, is that the same as this one, or is that the one without the supercharger? Do you know?
That's the one with the manual on it.
Oh, it's the one with the manual. Okay. Yeah. Don't want people to break the gearbox.
No, as we test cars, these are prototype cars.
Right.
So, of course, we get a combination of automatics and manuals to go out and test with.
Okay, yeah.
And one of the big things that are neat about these cars is they're all individually serialized. We don't replace the VIN number, which is provided by Ford, but the Shelby identification number, which is a CSM number, which stands for Carroll Shelby Manufacturing, is put onto that car, giving it its individual identity.
Oh, okay, that's really neat.
And we see that in 2 different places. In the engine compartment, right here, as well as in the cabin of the car.
That's neat. That's really cool.
So that's one of the beauties when you talk about the collectabilities of the cars. As we've been here at Barrett-Jackson, we've seen quite a few Shelbys go over the block.
Right,
and
yeah.
It's one of the beauties of this car that as we see people hold on to these cars, we're seeing the values go up.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then I think one of the big key factors is that we have a lot of people that watch us. We collaborate with our guys, SoCal Shelby, and they have a lot of GT350s, previous gen, and there's some of them that are eyeing the new one. And so what would you say for somebody that would be interested in possibly not the supercharger variant, but just the normal V8 with the 480? What do they need to know if they want to transfer over to the next generation?
I would say have both.
Have both?
Add to the collection. You can never have too many GT350s in the stable.
That's true. But in terms of down to the details, what are the changes between those 2 cars, if you know? In terms of the Voodoo from the past gen GT350 versus your guys' new GT350, what would they see the difference of?
I think when you look at just sheer numbers, those cars were built in larger numbers in the thousands, where we're going to see these cars built in the hundreds.
Right.
So, the collectability really is in the exclusiveness of the of the limited build numbers of this car.
Yeah. And the 562 numbers, that's in total, or is that split between non-supercharger and supercharger variant?
That's in total.
That's in total?
Combination of both.
So basically towards the end, when these cars have reached their complete production, that's going to come down to whatever the customer chose?
Correct.
So we could see, say, a non-supercharged one be even rarer than a supercharged one in the end, you almost could say?
Yeah, but why would you?
That's true. I'm just saying.
Hey, horsepower always wins.
That's so true. That's so true. And then behind you, is that the new R?
Behind us, we see the new GT350R that was built.
Yeah, let's definitely check that out. First of all, I automatically noticed that the R is heavy with aero. The aero kit is insane. It almost looks like a GT4 variant, race car.
Correct. With the introduction of the GT350 at Barrett-Jackson, we later in that day did the release of the GT350R,
right?
Street car version that we see here. Very different than the standard version of the GT350. What we introduced, or what we with our press release, we announced that Shelby's going back to racing.
Yeah, and they just won the 24-hour at Daytona.
Big weekend.
Yeah, that just happened just this morning, so that's pretty cool.
So phenomenal. So we will be racing in the Trans Am Series in 2026.
Okay.
So we'll have a spec-built race car. This is all being set up right now and finalized. And this is call it the street version of what the spec car will look like.
Yeah.
Well, obviously we see the aero of the car. As we build these cars, particularly for a car that's going to spend time on the racetrack, you better have cooling.
Right. Yeah.
So when you look at the hood, we see an aluminum hood with a lot of cooling and heat extraction in it. We have the aero on the front end of the car for deflection and downforce. As we walk around the cars, we notice the big brakes.
Yeah.
The big Alcon race spec brakes. Phenomenal.
And the coloring of the vehicle, is this the only style you can get it in? Because I know the Trans Am style coloring I noticed. I'm assuming that's what it's based off of?
That's a great question. All 36 cars which will be built in 2025 will be Oxford white.
Oxford, okay.
And you'll have two different graphics color packages that you can get for the car. This being the gold package, and then the traditional package, the blue and red package with the Guardsman blue stripes.
That's awesome.
All the graphics are painted, so we're not dealing with stickers on the car,
right?
But painted graphics, which, as you can see, looking at the cars. So as we go around to the back of the car, you'll see the carbon fiber wing, which is adjustable for downforce for different tracks that we happen to be on. Carbon fiber diffuser, and if we go back to the side, we'll notice the side exit exhaust at the bottom of the rear quarter, as we see down there.
And is there protection for people so they don't, burn their legs when they get out? Because I know the Viper was always known for burning your calf.
If you look at the placement of the exhaust underneath, that's not going to be a problem.
Yeah. And the R is street legal, correct?
Yes, it is.
It is? Awesome.
Yeah.
I love how Ford and Shelby and all those guys are getting together to bring these race cars for the street. It was starting with that GTD that was crazy and how it's street legal, and then you get things that are even more insane that create. It's just what everybody's doing nowadays is bringing the race car to the street. It's so cool.
One of the cool things with Shelby, and the time that I've been here, we are always pushing the envelope, and as Carol said, we're always looking for the next thing.
Right.
So even as this car is being introduced, we're looking to the next project.
Of course, yeah.
Which is one of the beautiful things with Shelby American.
Yeah.
Inside the car, the car sports a 4-point welded-in cage. It has race seats as an option, and it sports a full carbon fiber tub.
That's awesome. And what's the weight on the R compared to the normal 350?
That has not yet been released.
Not been, okay. We would expect that the R is lighter, though?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Is there any, if you know at all, any panels or hood, door, or anything, kind of like how, I'm just referencing the GTD because they kind of made everything carbon. Is there anything that's been changed to carbon on this, or is it still the same chassis?
As we've talked about, a lot of the carbon fiber pieces, we've talked about aerodynamics. As we move back to the front of the car, less unsprung weight is very big. A lot of carbon fiber we see on this car, whether it's inside the cabin or even the front fenders, which we see are carbon fiber fenders and aluminum hood. As we get to the fenders here, these are all carbon. They're vented. Once again, it's about air in, heat extraction. Same thing with the hood. We have an aluminum hood for weight reduction, and then we have our carbon fiber vents, which, once again, as I mentioned before, it's all about getting that hot air out of the car.
Yeah. And then interior-wise, with the seats, so it's all harnessed, everything?
The seats and the harness of this car for production will be a separate transaction.
Right.
So you'll have the opportunity to purchase the Sparco seats as well as the harnesses to go along with it.
Okay.
The bar that we see is a welded-in bar.
Awesome.
Roll over protection.
All right, guys, that's going to end it on this video with the new Shelby. So huge shout out to Tim from Shelby, walking us through all the vehicles. And is there anything you want to say to anybody that's interested?
You know what? Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to talk about these phenomenal cars. And we look forward to seeing these cars show up in your garage.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, guys. Remember, like, subscribe, comment, and contact Shelby America if you want either the new R or the new 350. So thank you.
Thank you.